So attacking him on that basis, I think the answer, though, is what is your idea? What is your record? What have you achieved? And if you can get these folks to hear you and to hear what we've done here, what I did in Washington with a vision and a record, not just talk from somebody, not just talk about what I will do, but really an explanation of what we have done as a team, as a state, as a country, when I had an opportunity to fix it. And I think that's the direction to go, and we'll see if it works, and I really do believe that it will. Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to how you would improve or change healthcare when I'm an independent contractor consultant, and when I had to get my own insurance, I was at the point right where Obamacare was kicking in. And actually, thank goodness, because insurance would not cover me because of pre-existing conditions, which were minor. So I'm not fond of Obamacare, but how would you improve it?
Well, I would tell you, Miss, that there should never be a case where somebody cannot get health insurance coverage because they have a pre-existing condition, because what that means, really, what that, okay. Oh well, I guess I'm trapped. Okay. Okay. You know what that means is that you know, nobody should ever lose everything they work for in their lifetime because they get sick. That's not America. That's not what we believe. So I would tell you right now, we're not going to let anybody lose coverage because of pre-existing conditions. Now, secondly, what is the problem with Obamacare? The problem with it is not controlling healthcare costs. And when we think about our deductibles, how they going? They're just skyrocketing up and to the point where we almost have catastrophic policy anymore. And we have to spend so much. So the rising costs of healthcare is a problem. Secondly, the cost of insurance has gone up an average of 80% in our state. Mary runs the Department of Insurance, and it's made insurance less affordable. And thirdly, if you're a small business person, you don't want to get caught in the web of Obamacare because it imposes too many rules on you. So is there an answer? And you know, I've been talking about this answer even in the debates because it's what we have been doing in Ohio. Number one, we don't want anybody, if we get rid of this program, or when we get rid of this program, we don't want anybody to just all of a sudden not have any health insurance. You know, I was in Maine. I was in Maine one time and I was lost, and we couldn't, you know, there was a guy walking on the sidewalk, and I told our car, pull over. Look, I wound the window down. I said, sir, have you lived here your whole life? He looked at me, he said, not yet. But I was walking down the sidewalk, and I walked into this little craft store. And this lady was in there. She's like, who are you? You know, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm just here visiting. I'm waiting on my lunch. And I said, how do you feel about the governor? Because I was up there visiting him. She said, I hate the governor. Because all of my lifetime, I've been trying to get health insurance, and now that I have it, the Republicans are trying to take it away. So I can understand that emotion. What I would do is to take some of the federal resources that are currently available, combine it with Medicaid, which we have done a great job of running in this state because of my team, and be able to have an exchange that where you could shop right here, you know, in Ohio, and you would be able to keep your health insurance, okay? That's number one. But the number two direction is to change the way healthcare works, because I tell you what's going to happen, folks. If the costs keep growing, somebody's going to get rationed. That means you get something and somebody else doesn't, or you don't get something and somebody else does. Who do you think gets rationed? Think it'll be the rich people? No. So what we want to do is start looking at quality and cost with our hospitals and our doctors. Because when you ever get a hospital bill, it's easier to interpret the Dead Sea Scrolls than it is your hospital bill, okay? And I get treated up here at, you know, at the clinic for some pressure in my eyes, and bills come, I give them to my wife. I can't figure out what they are. I'm running for president, okay? And I'm not hitting the Cleveland Clinic, okay? I love them, okay? Love you, okay? But I still don't understand the bills, okay? So, and the Cleveland Clinic's actually helping us on this program, as the major healthcare systems are. So we are looking at the quality of both our hospitals and our doctors and the costs. And what we find is that quality is not necessarily connected to cost. Somebody could have lower cost and high quality, and somebody could have low quality and high cost. So what we are going to do is to reward those people who are delivering quality care at lower prices below the average. So if you're really delivering great health care, I'll give you a good example. Your primary care doctor. If your primary care doctor keeps you healthy for the year, give him or her a financial reward. Drive healthcare costs down by insisting on high quality and low prices. And if we do that, we will begin to put a downward pressure on healthcare costs. Okay? Right back here, sir. Yeah.
The three candidates are very critical of the nuclear agreement with Iran and said if elected they would tear it up. What is your view?
Well, look, I mean, if Iran cheats on one aspect of it, we should tear it up. But how can I tell you what it's going to look like when I become president? And let me tell you another thing. We are better as a world when the United States leads and we have partners. So what I think the president ought to be doing is he ought to be going over to visit with our allies and say we have this agreement, and if they don't cross one T or dot one I, let's not even have a discussion. We're going to put the sanctions back on. But I don't think that's happening, sir. I don't think that they are lining that up. And so my sense is let's watch what happens. If they violate that agreement, even if we have to unilaterally put those sanctions back on, that's what we ought to do. Now, if I were president, would I have done this agreement? Of course not. Because we already gave them $100 billion that they could use to spread problems. And I got to tell you, just because those sanctions came off, there ought to be other sanctions that we put on when we see them get out of line. So my sense is keep the pressure on them, hold them accountable, have the world hold them accountable, and if they get out of line, you put the sanctions back on, and then bring them to the bargaining table and tell them to give up all these things that they think and say and they do. Okay? Thank you.
You've worked with John. You've worked early in your career with getting minorities included in the workplace and using state contracts to help the minority entrepreneurs get work here. How would you address that on a national level?
Well, I think first of all, I guess when it would come to the GSA, the General Service Administration, we want to make sure that we create entrepreneurship. We want to give people hope, and so you give them a little start. Now, in our state, we have had in place that there is a set-aside of 15% for the disadvantaged. We never had carried it out before. We are now meeting those goals. But here's the thing that we now have to look at. We don't want somebody to be in that program forever. The point of that program is to get on your feet and grow out of it, so you're just a majority business. And so at the end of the day, we need to make sure that our friends in the minority community feel as though they can get a hand up. And at some point, they're going to have to get up on their own, right? We just give them a kickstart, which is exactly what our philosophy has been. Well, you give them, maybe through the GSA. I don't know what the GSA rules are, but our state has been a leader in this, and I've talked all over the country about what we've done. Because for our minority community, it's not just that program. It's been the idea of reforming the criminal justice system. Give everybody a chance to get back up on their feet. We have worked through the legislature, my friends there, to say that we're not going to have collateral sanctions, where you can't ever get a job doing anything if you were a nonviolent felon. We've reformed the Cleveland schools to try to get these schools moving, and I think they are moving in the right direction. We put the collaborative together for community and police so we can be united. But I think the economics is important. So when we built the road from downtown Cleveland to the Cleveland Clinic, we have big goals for the minority community. And I was there when we announced it. And I think the goal is about 20% of the minority folks being involved in building this road. And when I was in that building, and announced it along with our head of transportation, people in there were weeping. They couldn't believe that anybody would be concerned enough to include them. And I said, look, we're not going to build a road that isolates you either. You're going to be part of this process. So we've got to look for lots of opportunities to make sure that everybody in America feels as though they have a chance, because if they don't, we're a divided country. So we'll look, John, at what we could do at the federal level, but the states can be very effective, in which I would talk about. See, part of what I'd like to do as president is to empower the states. I'd like to move welfare back to Ohio, Medicaid back to Ohio, education back to Ohio, transportation back to Ohio. The reason I want to do it, I mean, do you see how dysfunctional now the federal government is? We've lost respect for them. And give me that thing. Give me that. You see this? You know what this is, kids? My daughters are 16, and when they were 10 or 11, we were in Florida on a vacation. And my daughter said, Daddy, what is that box over there? And oh, that's where Superman changes his clothes. And Mom and Dad used to put coins in that to make phone calls, and they were like, no way, okay? You see, everything is moving faster. Everything is moving faster where we are demanding better value at lower prices, everything. There's only one thing that doesn't move like that, and that's government. And you know, when businesses fail to move, they go bankrupt. When government fails to change, we take on debt, which gets stuck on all of us. So we need to think about Uberizing the federal government, okay? Uberizing government at all levels so that we get better services at lower prices with innovation. Am I right, Mayor? You cannot believe how many smartphones I get this way. So let me just finish by also saying that this takes me back to what I wanted to talk about earlier, and that is we have to fix problems. You know, when I grew up in that little town in McKees Rocks, our hero was Roberto Clemente. You know, you had your heroes here. I mean, I'll give you one example, Jim Brown. You know, they'd knock him down and he'd take his time, but he'd get up and he'd run again. And they'd knock him down and he'd get up and run again. He's one of the greatest football players in the history of the NFL. You see, we don't get our look, okay, hire me, I'll be the CEO, okay? I'll take care of the budget and all that other stuff. But you know why we're fixing the Cleveland schools? Let me tell you what happened. Mayor Jackson came to my office. The union, the head of the union, what's his name? Tell me again. Qualky, David Qualky. I give him a lot of credit. He's a McKees Rocks boy, believe it or not. We had the business leaders, Mr. Ratner, who's one of my heroes. He came in. A couple other people. The head of the Cleveland Foundation. Help me out. Ron Richard, a great man. And you know what they said? We want to fix the Cleveland schools, and we want you to help us just stay out of our way. Just do what we want you to do. Will you do that, Governor? I said, well, I'll walk on hot coals for you. But what was the point? The point is they didn't come, we didn't go to them, they came to us. And when they came to us, it was because they said, we're going to fix this. We're not waiting on anybody else. You want to fight drugs? Go wipe them out in your community. Don't wait for somebody to, I mean, we know this. We know that our strength rests in us. And I'll tell you one other thing. And I've been talking about this a lot over the country, and one of my friends said, I don't know if everybody kind of agrees with you, but I said, well, it doesn't really matter. I believe the Lord made all of us special. I believe it. I believe there's nobody ever been made like you, young lady, ever before, and no one's ever going to be made like you again. So you have a purpose. And when you find that purpose and you use it to live a life bigger than yourself, what does that mean? Well, maybe you're a nurse and you're dead tired. and you still go into the hospital room at 10:30 when your shift was over at 10 o'clock to tell a family, hey, it'll be okay. Or a doctor who makes a phone call at 11 o'clock at night because